Welcome back to Porcelain Peak, Strange and Scary podcast featuring Chop Talk, trivia, and deep dive main discussions into the odd and unusual. I am one of your hosts, Tone, and I'm joined by the Jigsaw himself and the boy, Anthony.
A.K.A. America's lanky, lovable know-it-all.
The tree.
I was just reading the back of the Ernest Goes to Jail box.
Oh, yeah.
America's lanky, lovable
and that's
know-it-all.
what we're talking about this week. Ernest goes to jail. So
you wish.
I do wish. If I could tie one of those motherfuckers into sci-fi or horror, we're there. Anyway, what we are doing this week is we're going to do Chop Talk with just a little bit. Then we're going to play trivia, see if these two fucks can break their tie streak, which I don't know if we've ever had before.
We're in one of those Harry Potter situations where like our wands are connected.
Yeah. You guys are just magic docking. And then for our main discussion...
Take my body back.
Let's do this together, John.
We're continuing with James Wanuary and talking about Insidious and Insidious Chapter 2. So before these
Insidious 2... Patrick Wilson Boogaloo.
Let's go ahead and move on to that Chop Talk. Stay tuned.
Why don't you take an axe and chop it open?
Before we jump into that trailer and whatever other news, how are you guys?
If you're a longtime listener, you'll know that I suffer from a little post-traumatic stress, which is super fun when at 3:45 a.m. Every single device in the house goes off with the world's loudest alarm because there's a tornado warning, which was super cool. Scared the shit out of me. And so that was how my day started.
I think, yeah, that's how a lot of us, except stilts.
I slept like a fucking baby. I wish that that tornado had come for me, though, because I've always wanted to fight a tornado. I feel like I could beat one in a fight. And if it sucks me up, one, I got sucked off. Two, I could meet
Like
the Munchkins. I could meet the Munchkins in Munchkin Land.
The Lollipop Kids?
The Lollipop Kids, the Lollipop Guild. Yeah, but for some reason, Storm didn't bother me. I think it's just because if my dang roof ain't leaking on me or falling on me, I don't give a shit anymore.
It went off and it was like, get to shelter or whatever. And I was like, where am I going to go? Like, we don't have basements.
Yeah, all the alerts were like, go to your basement. And it's like, nobody in California has a basement. So I don't know what the fuck you're talking about. But
yeah, so I just tried to go back to sleep.
I was exhausted from swinging around New York City as Spider-Man, beating up some bad guys, and then switching over to playing as a cat in Robot Land.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. A little stray.
No fuck idea. Action. That you can play as a cat in the Spider-Man game?
No,
in a different game. Stray.
Okay. Oh, okay. All right. Right on. What was that game you played with the goose? Was that you?
It's not. I did not play that. That was probably Carlos, I'm guessing. But the game is called Untitled Goose Game.
Right on. Not related. Anyway, we got some news. We got a couple of trailers.
Yeah, so one trailer, really. Before we get to the trailer, I wanted to briefly mention two other pieces of news. One is that visionary horror director Eli Roth is finally making Thanksgiving, the Grindhouse trailer that came out however long ago, a million years ago. I know you've been the one who, whenever we roll around toward Thanksgiving time, you mentioned like, oh, wasn't Eli Roth? Didn't he have that trailer? That'd be cool if he made that thing.
Probably.
Well,
I've probably at least said that once.
Yeah. Apparently a lot of people are excited about it. I don't like anything that Eli Roth has ever done in his entire life. So, I'm not super excited.
He was decent in Inglourious Bastards.
I do like him as the Bear Jew in Inglourious Bastards, but I
would re-watch Cabin Fever to see if I have a different appreciation for it now, because it's not one of those slower burn movies.
Yeah, I just liked it when I was a kid because it has Ryder Strong from Boy Meets World in it. But
and it's Boy Meets World.
Which ties into our bonus episode where we talk about Eric Matthews.
Oh, yeah. Synergy. So, yeah, a lot of people are excited about this.
You should say that it's Saw 2 specifically is a character in Saw 2.
Yeah. Eric Matthews.
Yes.
Yeah. Like the character from Boy Meets World.
Yeah, because you were just going to say Eric Matthews and then move on.
Yeah. Maybe that gets people intrigued. John, you spoiled the surprise.
Yeah, and I think it's Matt Freitas who plays Eric Matthews in Boy Meets World. Also voices Batman Beyond.
It's Will Friedle.
Friedle, yeah. Also voices Terry McGinnis in Batman Beyond.
Y'all are just putting yourself and stuff on.
Yeah, which is my way of saying we should move beyond this piece of news into how the movie Megan is doing. So
I heard people think it fucking sucks. And it's like a comedy.
So it's been very divisive. I've seen people saying that it's fucking amazing, and other people saying it's terrible. I'm pretty sure that it is a Malignant situation, and a lot of people have compared it to Malignant in that it is just a wild, crazy, throw everything and the kitchen sink in kind of movie, and it makes sense because it's also written by Akilah Cooper, who wrote Malignant, and it's produced by James Wan. Like, it feels like this is the kind of stuff that he wants to produce. And yeah, the people who were into Malignant, like, you know, are probably gonna dig it. I'm sure I'll dig it because I fucking love Malignant. I've seen it like 12 times since it came out. But
I mean, I think I would be happy having like a Malignant-esque movie every year. We had Malignant in 2021, and then 2022 we had Barbarian, and then if Megan is similar in like how bonkers and crazy it goes, I'm 100% on board for that.
Was
shit.
Malignant 21?
Yeah.
I've seen a lot of people saying that
Crazy, man.
that they're happy that these kind of horror movies are coming out because we've gone a good stretch here with like the A24 elevated horror, and now we're getting kind of a swing back toward just like goofy concept, cheesy, crazy horror movies.
Well, I mean, Blumhouse still makes the latter.
Yeah, no, but these movies like this, and I mean, Smile's not really cheesy, but like these movies are performing pretty well with these wild concepts, and I think people just also enjoy a really fun horror movie, not always one that makes you think about how depressed and suicidal you are.
Yeah, I'm like check for both, please. I'll take the entire menu.
Pretty much.
In its opening weekend, it made a whopping $30.2 million at the box office. It's hard to put that into perspective when we've been talking about the billion-dollar grosses of movies like Avatar. But
this is a pretty small budget,
for a
right?
small budget Blumhouse horror movie. This did super well. The reviews critically are still pretty positive overall. I still think it's funny that like even Jason Blum on Twitter, as soon as the first like batch of reviews comes out on Rotten Tomatoes, and every movie that has even a few positive reviews usually sits in like the 95% range for that first week before it comes out. They grab that and they're like, look, it's got a 95%. It's got a 95%. I'm like, the movie's not even out yet, and when it drops, it's gonna drop. You know, even just a little bit. But I'm happy that it's doing well.
I've seen him on Twitter.
He's weird. He's weird.
So he's been talking about. He's like, go see Megan and then go see RRR. That fucking that
which I completely agree with. You should
movie.
check out RRR. He says that it's going to win an Oscar. I wouldn't be surprised. So the one I told you about last week. It's on Netflix. It's an Indian movie about the two revolutionaries, but it's done in like the really like there's some amazing dance numbers, and it's just like it's a super fucking cool movie. You should definitely check it out. Like I said, Blum also dressed up as Megan for Halloween last year, and that was hilarious.
I also saw it at a baseball game. I think it was at a Dodgers game. There were like 5 different people who were dressed up as Megan who were right behind the dugout. So they were like on camera the whole time.
Smart. That's some fucking fringe shit.
Yeah, some
That's how they
marketing.
did Smile. Is they had people standing in the stands at sports games doing the Smile. Where they
that
get caught
show
on
Fringe
camera.
used to do that, where they had these characters as like guys in suits, almost like the Adjustment Bureau.
Yeah,
and they would just go stand in places and just stare
classic
around.
Abrams viral marketing.
So is this the first project between Blum and Atomic Monster now merged?
I believe so, yeah, and they have another one with Wyatt Russell, I believe, coming out next year.
Sweet.
So they're already popping things out, but I did watch a video with James Wan. I sent it to you guys just to confirm that in his accent, he says Megan, and he was talking about how at Atomic Monster, they were basically just like sitting around in a room going, what should we make next? Creepy doll movie. And everybody was just on board, and they're like, let's do it. So the biggest news and the most current news dropped today, which is the first trailer for Ari Aster's Beau is Afraid / Joaquin Phoenix, his ingeniously depraved nightmare comedy. So I watched the trailer for this. You watched the trailer for this. John, as usual,
have not
is the
watched
odd
the
man
trailer.
out.
It did not seem to be portrayed as a horror movie.
Yeah.
Like weird shit, maybe, but not like his last two. It feels very different.
Yeah, which I'm totally cool with. It just surprised me a lot. But everybody that I've seen on social media, their reaction to this has been like, fuck yeah, this looks bonkers and fun and let's do it. The whatever sort of de-aging and aging they're doing looks a lot better in this than it did in Men. Even in this trailer, it looks a lot better. And yeah, whatever. I don't know what the concept is, but I also feel like this trailer, this is all I'm going to watch in terms of stuff coming out before the movie. But I think this is probably a little bit misleading in terms of how much horror stuff and is actually in it. Like, it feels like at some point it's going to take a little bit of a darker turn. I would be surprised if it doesn't.
I would hope so.
But yeah, just based on this, I mean, we made the comparison. It looks a lot like a Daniels movie. It looks like Everything Everywhere All at Once by Ari Aster, and we love Daniels. So if he wants to do his spin on the like weird, surreal universe, I don't even know if that's the concept. It's hard to tell from the trailer, but I'm into it, whatever it is. So
Yeah, I mean, we're going to watch it, so. But I'm the same boat. I won't watch any more trailers. I don't need to see anymore.
I mean, I haven't even decided if I'm going to watch this one yet.
I don't think you should.
I mean, I'm fine avoiding it.
yeah, knowing how you are with Ari Aster, like you probably will watch this, and just the limited amount of visuals we get in this will probably be too much. Like you'd be like, oh, I didn't want to see that. So I think you're probably better off waiting. But if anybody who's listening or watching checked out the trailer, let us know your thoughts. I know Steven he's the one that messaged this morning and put it on my radar, and he's very excited about it.
Yeah.
So he's totally on board. Big
And it's coming
Aster
in
fan as well.
April, right?
Mm-hmm.
Sweet. All right. Off to a good year already, huh?
Yeah, it's going to be
Like a blimp.
Good 2023.
Hey! And it said,
Did you just call him a blimp?
Tony's
That's
a
fucking
pimp.
rude.
Tony the Pimp. Here is his blim.
all right, let's get wrapping up for Chop Talk. We'll go ahead and get started with some trivia.
My pimp blimp.
That Christmas house of wax, the fog, piranha. It's one of those, right? Right?
Before we get started with Trivial Pursuit, we'll go ahead and reveal Anthony's trivia bonus question from last week.
Yeah, so I posed the question to the listening and the viewing audience and to you fellas. James Wan said in an interview that his obsession with creepy dolls and doing creepy doll movies came from a specific movie that he saw in his childhood that heavily inspired him. You guys made some guesses.
I said magic, and you said...
I said Child's Play, but then I said
right.
my secondary guess was Poltergeist.
And the answer is, drum roll please, Poltergeist.
Yeah.
Oh, nice.
The clown doll fucked him up, and I think especially after watching Insidious, the Poltergeist influence is very
Pretty apparent, yeah.
but not in a bad way. So yeah, I do have a maybe an easier trivia question that relates to what we're talking about in today's episode, which is Insidious has become a franchise now, but originally Insidious had a different title, different working title. Do you guys know what the different title of this movie was?
My guess would be The Further,
Interesting. Why would you say that? Tell us more.
because they say The Further a lot.
Okay. I thought it was maybe because there was already a movie called The Closer. And
I don't know. That's a pretty good guess. I'm going to say
The Lynn Shakedown.
the Lynn Shay Miranda.
Yeah. All right. Well, I will.
I'm going through all kinds of like fusion dance scenarios in my head right now.
Yeah.
Lynn Shay just hitting some fucking historical raps.
Patrick Wilson's War. Rose Byrne Notice. Rose Byrne after reading. There we go.
I like Rose Byrne Notice. That was pretty good.
That's good, yeah.
All right. I will reveal the answer. And hey, if anybody heard one of the things we just said and thought, hey, I want to fund that movie,
Rose Byrne Notice is the one.
yeah, we'll take at minimum $50 million.
One. I think one.
But yeah, okay. I'll accept one. But let's get into some trivia.
All right. We're going to play Trivial Pursuit Horror Movie Edition. How it's going to work is we're going to read a category, then go around in a circle reading a question to each other, with me to John, John to Anthony, and Anthony back to me. And we will try to crown a winner. Last week, these guys tied, and the week before that, these guys tied. So we'll see if that'll change this week. Are we ready to get started, boys?
Yeah, the monster category.
All right.
Ready as I'll ever be.
John, the leader of the vampires in 30 Days of Night, is played by what actor?
Oh God, I can see.
It's one of those. I know that guy, but you don't know his name. Yeah.
Yeah, he plays one of the iterations of Stryker.
Yeah.
I can see his face.
He was in the number 23.
I'm gonna say that his name is not Vincent D'Onofrio because he looks kind of like they could be related.
Okay, that's right. That
No, but that's.
Okay.
Is his name not like three name not Vincent D'Onofrio?
It is Danny Houston.
Okay.
No God or something like that.
Yeah.
What God?
Puny God.
No.
I am your God.
You're on fire.
I know.
You're gonna give me a roast for notice.
Anthony, what is the surname of the protagonist in Village of the Damned, played by actor George Sanders?
I didn't know the Colonel was in that movie.
It's funny because we watched that movie as part of our trivia redemptions.
And learned nothing from it, apparently.
is, yeah.
Learned none of the hard hitting questions.
Except for the one question that we got on a different game that was like, what's the movie with the blonde children and the glowing eyes? Now we know that.
So correct me if I'm wrong, but his surname is like a
Last name.
Sir Patrick Stewart, Sir Ian McKellen. Yeah. Okay. The last name is, I'm going to say, Anderson.
It's Zellaby.
A to Z, baby.
Yeah, I was spot on. Tone, for your monster category. In Ginger Snaps from 2000, Ginger becomes what? Supernatural
Oh my God.
creature.
What's with the back-to-back weeks with the world's easiest Ginger Snaps questions?
I mean, if you haven't seen it,
True,
But it is one of those like cult classics. So
Yeah.
maybe when they wrote this, they were like, nobody's seen Ginger Snaps.
I don't know how it could be a cult
Maybe they thought
classic.
it was related to
it's
Ginger
just
Dead
flat
Man.
out good. Just a good movie.
I'm just hella into
a
werewolves.
werewolf. Yeah.
We already knew you had it, so I wasn't even concerned.
Great. So it puts me on the board.
Yeah, you're the only one.
You got a free point.
He is the only one.
Moving into
Gore / disturbing.
John. Jack is the boyfriend of what character in The Wizard of Gore? I feel like that could have been Jingleheimer Schmidt joke right
John
there.
Jacob.
Sorry, let me read it again for you. Jack is the boyfriend of what character in The Wizard of Gore from 1970? A movie
And
which
you can't
have
say
not
the,
seen.
Yeah, I
you
have
can't
not-
say the main one.
I'm gonna say Charlotte.
Dude, it's Sherry. That's pretty cool. Sherry Carson.
I feel like all of the consonants that I said all kind of
Yeah.
line up there, but not good enough.
Close but no cigar,
Yep.
bro.
Anthony, in Trick or Treat from 2007, what is the name of the childlike character that appears in all of the segments?
He lives in my apartment, and his name is Sam, short for Sam Hain.
Sam is correct.
Woo! Nice. On the
Finally,
board.
a question that's not horseshit. Tone, at the end of The Devil's Rejects from 2005, name the 3 characters that escape capture by the police.
Police.
At the end of Devil's Rejects?
Yeah, at the end of The Devil's Regrets
Uh-huh.
from 2005.
The Devil's
Name the 3 characters that escape capture by the police.
Because they get gunned down? Is that the 3 that it's thinking? Is that, you know?
I got 3 fingers up.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I don't want to say anything because I don't want to spoil the answer. Because it's not werewolves again.
Baby.
You got one?
Otis.
You got 2?
Fuck. I didn't think I was going to get that.
I mean, this one should be the slam dunk of the group, I will say.
Oh, really?
Because you've said 2.
Oh, is it... Oh, fuck. Is it Spalding?
It is. You nailed
Captain
it. Otis,
Spaulding.
Baby, and Captain Spaulding.
Woo! Huh?
Yeah, so I was confused. I was like, so is it saying escape captured from the police at the beginning of the movie? Because at the end, if you're pretending 3 from Hell doesn't exist, they all get gunned down.
Yeah, that's what I'm like. They didn't really. Sure, they escaped capture, but they got gunned down.
Yeah, so I was like, is it saying at the beginning when they escape
Weird
capture and go on the run? Anywho, you got it, so it doesn't matter.
So do you make the Tiny Tim noise when you release tension? Because that's what you implied.
It's a whole thematic thing. It's what he calls his ding dong. My Tiny Tim.
Yeah, those are my vinegar strokes.
God bless us, everyone.
Yeah, that's the sound I make when I tiptoe through the tulips. If you know what I mean. 2 points for me, 1 for Anthony, no for John.
Psychological is the next category.
All right, John, your psychological question is: what is the wooden object Tata Kuda uses to finally stop Martin Matthias in the conclusion of the film Martin?
Bless you.
I know. I did pretty good. I powered through the pronunciations, right?
I'm gonna say
1978. In case
I'm gonna say that it's a wooden cross.
oh, bro, it's a steak. So close.
It's just 2 stakes crossed up.
That's crazy because I was like, there's no way it's a steak. But I guess they're assuming that you might not know that Martin's a vampire movie. Does it say that in the? Anyway,
I don't know anything about that movie.
Yeah, it's about a guy who thinks he's a vampire, but you don't know for sure if he actually is a vampire or if he's just a fucking nut.
Didn't you watch a movie about that? But it was like a kid.
Yeah, it was called Martin.
No. Right? It's like a little kid, and he's like in the ghetto, and then there's like a couch in the middle of a field with some
You're talking about Let the Right One In?
No. We'll come back to it. You guys are like, yeah, we did watch that.
Yeah, it'll probably dawn on me in a
It's
little
like a
bit
little
here.
kid. It's like a little black boy.
Oh,
yeah,
this sounds...
Yeah.
This sounds so familiar.
Fuck, what is it called? I know exactly what you're talking about.
Okay.
I'll have to check my letterbox.
And we don't know
'cause I
for
what
sure
you're
if he
talking about.
is or not, or
Yeah.
the girl, something like that. Yeah.
It's not Affliction, which is also kind of a vampire thing, but it's something similar to that. It's like a one-word title. Yeah.
We'll get there. Anyway.
Anthony, what is the name of the rare medical disorder Raymond Andrew Jobert has in Gerald's Game from 2017?
Oh, being fucking sexy as hell. God damn, I'm trying to get... Is that the main guy?
No, I think that's the giant, the Moon Man or whatever. Is it gigantism?
It's acromegaly, or it's ACROMEGALY.
Okay, I'm gonna look this up real quick. How do you spell it? Oh, I got it. Acromegaly. Is it in adults, produces too much growth hormone. Is it the same thing as gigantism?
I don't.
Versus gigantism. Okay.
He's like, I have a medical theory.
Yeah, and right here it says gigantism does not turn into acromegalia. I was going to say that he had retroviral hyperplasia because that's what Harry Osborn has in The Amazing Spider-Man 2.
Is that a real thing?
Yeah, no, it turns you into a Green Goblin. Do you think that's a real thing?
No. I wasn't thinking that. I thought that maybe that's why he was like, I'm going to experiment on myself because it's going to help with my disease.
Well, while you're buying that, I recently got bit by a radioactive spider.
People really turn into goblins.
Goblin these nuts.
Thank you. Anyway.
Oh, fuck. Okay, so I didn't get a point for that.
No.
Okay.
At the end of the day, you wasted some time.
I didn't get a point for 2 stakes crossed over, so...
It's true. Tone, for your psychological category, over the course of the film Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde from 1931, do the transformations of the titular character become involuntary?
Yes.
The answer is yes. These are whack questions, I gotta say.
Hey, this seems
But I did
like
choose this card, so it is my fault.
It seems like a sweepable card.
The
possibly.
second one could have been a stumble.
Like I said, I knew you would get it, and especially after you got the first 2, I was like, "How are you not getting the most famous one?"
I don't know.
See,
I don't
like,
always
maybe-
picture him as the final boss. I don't know. Whatever.
Final girl.
Anyway, I'm at 3. Anthony's at 2.
No, he's
one,
at
I think.
1.
and I
You
got
had 0.
nada.
Okay. Right on. We're moving into paranormal.
You see?
Yeah, John, the woman in black.
What's the woman in back doing?
Daniel Radcliffe in Woman Got Back.
That's the adult version.
The woman in back, baby. What are you doing back there, girl?
The
Shit.
woman in black from 2012. What actor portrayed the only town resident to help Arthur Kipps?
Okay, I was like, did I just spoil another trivia question? But I didn't, so.
Oh, because yeah, but he would have got that.
Yeah.
Rupert Grint.
Don't you dare say that. I've been waiting years for a reunion.
Ciaran Hinds.
Gesundheit.
Yeah.
No, he's the, he
Like the old
is, yeah, and he's got the accent, and he's in a bunch of shit. I'm sure that helps you identify him. He's one of those fucking, I know that dude, but I can never think of his name. Ciaran Hinds.
I'm just
Ciaran
getting
Hinds.
I'm just getting a ton of know that guy answers here.
Unfortunately, John has that facial blindness. Retroviral hyperplasia.
Like Brad Pitt.
Oh,
Side effects may include goblin.
Goblinism.
Anthony, what antique is responsible for the sinister happenings in Oculus from 2014? The Flanagan shenanigan.
Oculus. Mike Flanagan. It's a mirror.
It is a mirror.
A little bit of trivia that ties into our main discussion. The young boy in Oculus, the younger version of the older boy, same actor who plays young Patrick Wilson in Insidious 2.
Oh,
Same dude.
there you go.
So a little Juan Flanagan crossover.
Technically in both, right? Because he's also in the pictures that appear in the
I
first
don't know.
one.
Is that the same kid though?
I think it is.
Oh.
Maybe. Who knows? Tone. Who directed Don't Look Now from 1973?
Who can it be now?
Donald Sutherland.
I knew that was going to be your guess, and it's wrong. It's Nicholas Roeg.
Doesn't even sound familiar. But I'm still sitting at 3, and Anthony now has 2.
I got shit.
And I don't think that's going to continue when we move into this killer category, John. I mean, I think that is going to continue. I don't think you're going to get this, is what I'm saying.
He's giving you real mixed messages right now.
Who directed both Terror Train from 1980 and Turner and Hooch from 1989? And, buddy, I swear to God, if you get this, I will jerk you off.
That's the most seriously you've made that offer. So I really hope that you stick to it this time if he doesn't get it right.
If he gets it, you'll jerk him off, too.
Oh, hell yeah. 100%. You're going to be so raw. And no, you won't be, honestly, because you won't get this. I wouldn't have gotten this. Who the fuck is that?
It's the director of Turner and Hooch, bro.
Oh, obviously.
Dan Hooch.
Incorrect. It is
It's Dan
Roger
Turner.
Spottiswoode. Dude, I'm not fucking kidding you.
Because that does sound like one of those made-up names.
You were covering the answer still.
Oh. I don't know what to tell you.
I'm just out here trying to spot us wood. You know what I'm saying?
Tough break this week, buddy.
That's the bad card.
You
Anthony,
were this close.
in Happy Death Day from 2017, what poisoned dessert does Lori try to give Tree?
If I recall correctly, it is a birthday cupcake.
It is indeed a cupcake. Had you said cake, I would have told you to fuck off.
It's one of them cupcake. It's my birthday. I gotta pick up the phone.
Dude, I wish we were getting a third one.
Yeah, for a while they were talking about doing a Happy Death Day freaky crossover movie. But Blum recently said that the chances of getting sequels to either is slim.
Yeah, I mean, he came out and said that the second one didn't make any money. And so he's like, even with our model, it doesn't work. But They didn't really advertise the second one.
Yeah.
Like, there was no.
It was just like, oh, by the way, here's another one of those.
Yeah, and I was like, what the hell? Like, I remember being like, yeah, I'm interested, and then it passing, and I was like, wait, that movie came out? Like, it was just on streaming, and I was like, when did that happen? But I liked it. It's very different. Have you guys seen the second one?
I have not.
Don't think I have. But I heard that it gets really like wacky and less horror and more like weird,
way more sci-fi.
Comedy. Tone. Your trivia question is Alice, Sweet Alice from 1976 was the film debut of what actress?
Debut.
Aren't those the related movies again? Didn't that happen last week? Aren't Alice, Sweet Alice, and Don't Look Now?
I think they were on your last card, yeah.
No, my card from last week.
That's so weird.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Conspiracy. Black helicopters.
Sissy Spacek.
Oh, so close. It was Brooke Shields.
Oh, shit. Okay. At least it's a name I know. Sometimes I'm like Spottiswood.
Brooke Standonopoulos.
So
we're tied at
3-3 Goose.
Oh, shit. I didn't realize that was in another tie. I'd be sweating a lot more.
Oh, you're good. Relax. All right. Next one is International John and Les Diaboliques from 1955. From what location at the all-boys boarding school does the body of victim Michael disappear?
If it helps at all, that's French for the Diaboliques.
So what part of this all-boys school did he disappear from?
Yeah.
I'm gonna say the locker room.
Ooh, so close. The swimming pool.
Swimming pool was my first guess, and I backed off of it.
Pretty sure your first guess was locker room. That's what I heard.
No, it's what I thought.
Dude, tough fucking trivia this week, man.
I think I've maybe seen one movie on that card.
Honestly, realistically, the only one that I would have gotten for sure is Danny Houston.
So you should definitely set that card aside so that we can make a list of those movies and make sure that we get them on a trivia redemption.
Well, I know that Les Diaboliques is already on there.
I've seen it, I believe, but I couldn't tell you anything about it off the top of my head.
But yeah, I digress. In Suspiria from 1977...
Who knows? It could be a weird-ass question.
What type of supernatural beings run the Tan's Dance Academy? It doubles in... It says, in Suspiria, 1977, what type of supernatural beings run the Tan's Dance Academy in Suspiria from 1977?
Why you make sure you know which Suspiria, dude? That's good writing.
Well, I do appreciate the clarification. But in both movies, it's fucking witches, bro.
Ain't that a bitch?
Ain't that
It's
a witch?
Actually, it's a witch.
Yeah. Hey, man, I have faith in you because listen to this question. I'm about to hit you with another giallo.
Okay. Yeah.
Girl.
In The Bird with the Crystal Plumage from 1970, what is the location where Sam first witnesses the killer in action?
Oh,
come on, baby. Come on, baby.
Is it a gallery?
Art exhibit.
Yeah, it's an art gallery, so I'll give it to you. There you go.
All right, hey, two-tone tie. Two-tone trivia tie.
This
job.
This year is just all about the ties, but now I'm in a different relationship now, John.
Yeah.
Now we're magically docking each other.
I'm being trivia cucked here. What the fuck? I have it still.
Oh.
There's also this.
Do you want to put these on the list? Or you want to wait?
Yeah, or just take a picture of the card or something for future reference. But yeah, that was trivia. Are we still on?
Yeah, we're still on.
Okay.
So,
Sorry, yeah.
So go ahead and enjoy the ads or the no ads if you're on Patreon. And then we'll see you in the main discussion. We're going to talk about Insidious and Insidious Chapter 2. So stay tuned.
Join the Creep Cult. $5 a month at patreon.com/Porcelain Peak for exclusive content, merch discounts, and more. Join the Creep Cult. $5 a month at patreon.com/Porcelain Peak for exclusive content, merch discounts, and more.
Hey,
You want to see something really scary?
Welcome back. We're going to go ahead and get started with our main discussion, continuing with James Wanuary, and we're going to get this week started with Insidious and Insidious Chapter 2, both directed by James Wan and both written by Lee Winnell.
Yeah, for a couple of his franchises here, he took the plunge and decided to make sequels, which is not the case, obviously, for Saw. But I want to talk a little bit about my experience with these movies, because that's something that we like to talk about. I remember when I saw the first Insidious.
I saw it twice in theaters, I think.
Wow.
I'm pretty sure I only saw it once because it scared all of the poop out of my body. It's the last movie that I remember, like, you know, that awesome feeling of leaving the movies and being like scared the whole drive home, and then even walking between my friend's car to my front porch and like jingling the key in the lock, and like the porch light's not on. I'm freaking out. The fucking lipstick demon's gonna get me, or the old lady spooked me for sure. But yeah, I was terrified, couldn't sleep after that, and I was like, damn, that was a good ass horror movie. And now, you know, I don't feel anything, and
Life is pain.
Life is pain. So yeah, the true horror is other people. But yeah, so for that obviously made me super excited for the sequel. And I also saw the sequel in theaters, and I think I was the most hyped person, like, in my group of friends who went to see it. And I remember leaving the second one being like, God damn, James Wan, he's the best. But at that point, and I always forget this, The Conjuring had already come out by the time the second one came out. And you and I saw The Conjuring together.
We did see that.
So I think by the time Insidious Chapter 2 came around, I was a James Wan fan. I think when the first one came out, I didn't really have an idea of who he was, or that he was connected to Saw or anything. Yeah. But yeah, that was my experience with him. And now I've seen the first movie definitely probably upwards of 50 times. The second one I've seen quite a few times, but not as many. And then I've seen the other ones, but I think these first two.
You've seen the Last Key or whatever?
Yeah, I couldn't tell you literally anything about it, but I do think that the third one has some cool moments, and we have a cool story around watching the third one together, which you won't hear because we're not talking about that movie. But
I mean, it is worth mentioning that I believe the third movie in this franchise is Lee Winnell's directorial debut, which obviously went on to do much bigger and better things. Like I said, he had
a little upgrade.
Yeah. We're all quite interested in where his directing career goes from here. So, but as a writer, he's done some fantastic things, and I think that Insidious and Insidious Chapter 2 are definitely some feathers in his cap.
Did he also write The Conjuring? Do we know?
No, I believe that The Conjuring is a James Wan. I don't know who wrote the Conjuring movies, but it wasn't Winnell. I know he wasn't involved in that franchise. But he was involved in Insidious and Saw. As duos, and then they kind of went off and did their separate things, and have kind of done their separate things since then, and it's been cool to see their careers grow. But what about, do you have memories of seeing these movies, or did you come late to the party with Insidious?
I have no fucking idea. I'm pretty sure I saw it in theaters.
Did you have
did
you have Elise erase your memories of the trauma of seeing the Insidious movies? Yeah.
No, I'm pretty sure I saw it in theaters, and I think I have a memory of the first time they go into the further, and me being like, no fucking way, they're like going into this other place.
They're going into the ghost zone.
Yeah, and I was like, that's fucking scary. So my opinion of it has changed.
I was going to say, that's not what you were saying recently when we were talking about the ending of this first movie.
Because I don't feel like we usually do that, right? It's always like the ghosts come to us and we deal with that. And so this is like, well, what is on that other side? And so I think initially going and exploring that other side was really cool. And it still has its moments here, but I don't think it's the best part of the movie by any means.
To be fair, we also, at the time that we all watched this, which is when it came out, because I
2010 2011,
I think it's 2011. I forced Mrs. Jigsaw to go with me, and then Ashley the intern came with us as well. And I was like, I want to see this again. Like I said, I left being like, oh, there are still jump scares that work for me? That's tight. Because I thought I was fully desensitized from a lifetime of living on fucking like rotten.com and all the other disgusting bullshit that happened during my childhood.
Steak and cheese.
So I think the the fact that I could still feel things from a movie that wasn't just like regular ass emotions was pretty sick, and I was very, very, very surprised by that. I think that none of us had known even that the Changeling existed at this point, which there's
Not outside of Angelina Jolie's movie.
Yes, but there are obviously a ton of similarities.
The seance, or whatever you want to call it specifically, is very, very close to that.
Yeah,
But I think that it's
Great homage.
It's not just that. I mean, there's I mentioned it earlier, but Poltergeist is a huge. There's even things down to like the counter tiling in the kitchen of the house is the exact same tiling as in the kitchen in Poltergeist. And then when Winnell Specs has the steak on his face, it's supposed to be like an homage to the crawling steak from Poltergeist. But so obviously he's trying to homage the haunted house genre in general. But
and I think this was kind of our first step back into haunted house stuff. I think it was just
it
after
kind of
the
revitalized
paranormal,
that.
and I think having Oren Peli as a part of this showed, and I think did it good, because there's parts of this that feel handheld.
Yeah, there's
like
shots that feel like Paranormal Activity.
Yeah, 100%.
Even the way the house is set up, like
And it made total sense to see his name in the credits. I was like, oh, okay. Well, that makes sense. Like, good job partnering with him and Blum to get this movie made, because it's even shot weird. Like, it's not like a normal quality. You can tell it's a different kind of camera. And I was like, all right, but it works because it feels like we're in, like, voyeurs, I guess, in their lives. And there's parts of it I think you've mentioned before that Juan does where it'll pan and then, like, you think you're going one way and then it sets up the shot perfectly for them come in frame.
Yeah, which is, like I said, it's something that Juan's done for a very long time.
And then
Yeah,
I
new
think
staples.
Winnell learned from that and does very similar stuff with Invisible Man, where he has where you think that the shot it's going to lead into the focus of the shot, and then it just leads into the spot where the actors come into the shot. And I always think that's a really cool, like, if I ever directed something or was cinematographer for something, that's a cue I would take, especially for spooky scenes. But
we get to see Saw and Dead Silence creep into this. The old woman looks a lot like Mary Shaw. Some of the quick cuts, we get that toward the seance scene when, what's his name? Dylan? What's the kid's name?
Dalton.
Dalton, yeah.
When he, like, wakes up, it's very, like, flashy and kind of like that. And I think there's even a slow-mo, like one of the slow-mo shots in this. And I was like, okay, so we are seeing some of those tendrils, and then what moves forward.
There's also a drawing of Jigsaw on the chalkboard at his classroom.
Yeah, with the 8 under it, which I guess was before Jigsaw came out.
yeah, I don't know if that was intentionally supposed to be a reference, but yeah, that you get the puppet, which in most of Juan's movies you get Billy the puppet in some way.
But then we also get stuff that we then see in The Conjuring, like those shots, which was kind of new for him. This is like an elevated Juan at this point, it seems like. And although this movie is very blue, it's way more subtle than Dead Silence.
That is something that I definitely picked up on this time because I was watching these movies pretty much back to back. So I kind of always imagined that all of his movies had that super, super blue coloring like Dead Silence. But yeah, Dead Silence I think is the most. That's why I said it goes too far into being ugly. This dials it back a bit, but still does some like really interesting stuff with lighting. Like in both of the Insidious movies, he's a big fan of lighting with like these really, really bright white lights, pretty much like these that we have in the room, where like all the lights, you don't have any warm orangey lights or anything, like no David Fincher lighting. It's all these bright like even their lights on their bedroom tables in their rooms are
it's like it's very
bright,
sterile.
Sterile. The whole thing has a very sterile, like antiseptic feel, and maybe that's supposed to contrast it with The Further, but I think it just makes for a very like uncanny feel, and a lot of the movie feels off kilter intentionally, both with the lighting and the coloring. Angles. A lot of the camera work is a lot of just turning the camera around, and then also the music, which I think is a huge highlight of the movie. Joseph Bishara, who ended up collaborating with him on the other Insidious movies, at least the second one, and then did music for The Conjuring. The way that this is done, where the jump scares I think end up being more effective because the actual reveal and the scare itself will be in silence, and then a little bit lagging behind it, you'll get the like weird discordant, like somebody just slamming shit on a piano.
And just
like
the string usage in this too is so
a good example is with the baby monitor. Like she hears the voice and it's scary, and then it's like burn,
Burn,
yeah,
and
like
yeah.
after it, yeah.
Yeah, so it's like, oh, you get enough time to kind of like subconsciously absorb what you may have seen in the background or like what the spooky thing is, and then it hits you, just in case you weren't scared. Then the music hits you.
Yeah, and I think another good example of that is, and we talked about it a little bit outside the show, but he lets you sit in the tension. So like the scene where she runs up the stairs and she looks, and there's that dude behind the like baby veil.
My favorite,
like,
one of my favorite scares of all time.
If you are looking for it, like it's there right away, but she doesn't notice it right away. So you're like, oh shit, and then you get the sting. So you're sitting with it, and then like you said, that musical boom. And there's some where he won't even play music, like when they move into the new house, and there's that kid standing in the corner. Like, if you don't know that that's there, you totally miss that.
Yeah, I probably for the first dozen times I watched this movie never realized the kid was over in that corner. And yeah, there's stuff like that both in this movie and the second movie where it'll be somebody walking by like some alcoves and you'll just see like the woman standing in the corner.
I was doing the Leo at when we were in the theater.
Well,
like,
and
pointing at that kid, I was like,
well, and at this point especially too, we've been trained by the Flanagan like hidden ghosts in Hill House to just be like looking at all the corners and stuff. And Juan also like in his movies does a lot of that very intentional like you're saying, panning the camera long enough and slow enough, or zooming into a room long enough and slow enough that you're convinced that something's going to pop up, and half the time it doesn't. Mm-hmm. So it builds that tension, and then there's no like release to it. So there's a lot of shots like when the one son who has nothing to do in either of these movies,
Foster.
Yeah, when he's has that great part where he's like, you know, Mom, I'm scared. I don't want to stay in my room. I don't like when Dalton gets up and walks around at night. And then you see him like looking down the hallway at his brother's room, and it's just slowly zooming into the brother's room, and then slowly zooming in on the other brother's room, and slowly zooming in.
Yeah.
And then eventually he just runs up and closes the door, and then you hear a bunch of noise
That's
out
what
there.
I'm saying. We just sit.
Yeah,
I
it's
think
just a
that's
lot of slow.
Another good to piggyback on that and talk about, away from the music, but the sound design is so fucking good in this, and I don't know how else to describe it, but it's like
boom, 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 boom.
It's like everything's really sharp. Like the sounds are really sharp, and they're way louder than they should be, I feel like, for usual movies like this, but it works so well, and the creaking not only plays into the old house, but also plays into the Darth Maul demon. Like, we get a lot of that.
And then you recognize that in the scene at the end of the second one where you're like, oh, it's got to be that demon because he's the one that makes the noises.
So good. I think this movie is basically perfect until Patrick Wilson fights that slick-haired ghost in the further, and then after that, the movie kind of loses it for me.
Yeah, it gets a little bit ridiculous, and we kind of talked about how that seems to be Juan's only weakness when it comes to his movies is
having trouble sticking the landing.
Yeah, the landing. It's like, I even think The Conjuring. Like, I always have this constant battle between whether I think The Conjuring or Insidious is my favorite of his movies. I think it's Insidious. I think I just like the style and the scares of Insidious more. But Conjuring, even at the end when it gets into the crazy exorcism shit and people are flying around and stuff, that goes off the rails.
They're both satisfying though.
Yeah, no, and I don't think it's a bad ending. Like, I like The Further just because it's, at the time, like, that was such a cool thing to see, and I still do think that the design of The Further, which may lose a bit of its impact now that we've seen like the upside down
and like 60 different iterations of it.
Yeah, where it's like big black room with fog. Like, it's a relatively easy effect, but I think the way he executes it, and then the whole idea of like Patrick Wilson wandering through all of these like very Amityville horror inspired like murder scenes of things that might have happened in the house in the past, and there's just so many different kinds of ghosts, and you can tell that while it doesn't all make a lot of sense, you can tell that Juan has a lot of passion for making really interesting ghosts that are just people in makeup, like, except for one
Smiling.
except for one really egregious CG shot with the lipstick demon crawling across the wall. Pretty much all of the ghost shit in this movie is practical. It's just people in creepy ass makeup.
Yeah, I think that
I hated that part. Like, I think that's my least favorite part of this movie.
It's like, most people's, I think, that I've talked to about it.
But the Further, like, design wise, it feels cold. Mm-hmm. Like you see kind of like after he kind of is away from his body, and then you realize what the next steps are, and he continues on his traveling journey. it almost gives you a chill just because like everything feels like it would just be like freezing.
And it's pretty scary. And when he's traveling around and looking at the girl that shot her family, like that whole beginning part is scary.
When he creeps up to the lady with the lantern and then she blinks.
Yeah. Yes.
He's just like,
yes.
Yeah.
But it's then he has to fight that guy, and then he's like, I compel you, or whatever. I was like,
yeah.
all
Then
right.
it's like, get into the magical powers of the
Yeah.
further.
And then I don't know, like the demon guy, I just don't really understand like what he's doing, and then he's just like creeping around, like listening to music. I don't know. It just didn't make. It lost me. That's where it kind of starts to lose it, and then it tries to kind of redeem it. I think it's mostly successful with the kind of punch ending.
Yeah. The further that they, the furthest that they take the concept, like the explanation of what's going on is just kind of because Dalton astral projects and leaves his body. It's like an invitation for all of these spirits and demons to come try to get his body. And then I think we get a little bit more explanation about Josh's whole situation in the second movie and how his connection to the old lady is. But I do like the whole looking at the pictures of him when he was a kid, and you can see the ghostly old woman in all the pictures. Things that I picked up on in this movie that I hadn't picked up on before is that his mom, played by Barbara Hershey, one, she's named Lorraine.
Correct.
Two, she talks about having had a dream about walking through the house and meeting the demon, and I was like, oh, so she must have some sort of like latent psychic or astral projection powers that she's passed down. Also, Barbara Hershey was in a movie called The Entity, where she is assaulted by spirits. So a little connection to other paranormal stuff. Lynn Shay, obviously, connections to like Nightmare on Elm Street. So I had noticed that, and then there was something else that I had told you, but I don't remember off the top of my head.
Patrick Wilson being aware of the woman like subconsciously, so he's like,
oh, so he has,
care of his
yeah,
eye
he has a couple
cream.
weird bits where like you see him in the beginning looking in the mirror, and he keeps trying to pluck his gray hair, and he's like, every time I pluck you, you grow back, and I'm like, oh, he has some sort of like fear of growing old, or he has some sort of like obvious deep PTSD about old, being old because he's had this old ghost following him around, and then I always thought it was super weird. There's just him moisturizing next to his eyes before he gets into bed with Rose Byrne. And I was like, oh, it's because he doesn't want crow's feet because he's afraid of getting old because he's been spooked by old ghost lady. I did want to give just a little bit of background on what James Wan said about like the intention of this movie. So he wanted Insidious to be an answer to Saw. He felt that Saw had kind of misrepresented him as a director in terms of being into like the super gory, like fucked up, quick cut craziness, when a lot of that just comes from that's the idea that they were able to afford to do. And he didn't want that to be like his style that stuck with him. So with Insidious, he was like, hey, we're going to go pretty far in the other direction in terms of doing what would become the real James Wan style staples, which is he loves his long focal zooms. He loves his long pans.
How many times did we pan across the front side of this fucking house? I was like,
yeah, he loves his creepy house facades, which feels very Amityville and that kind of thing. Lots of fog. I think the further kind of looks like what all of Dead Silence looks like, but just in the dark.
Yeah, they were definitely, even like the old photograph of the kid, and especially in those like flashbacks, it feels like parts of Dead Silence coming through.
Well, and those punch-ins that he does, they feel almost like Spielbergian in a way. Like it just reminds me of that scene with in Jaws where they punch in on
the old Hitchcock zoom. Yeah. I think that we would be remiss if we didn't talk about the most, I think, iconic scare from this movie, which got me really fucking good. I still remember when I was in theater, but it's the lipstick demon popping out behind Patrick Wilson
in the daytime.
Daytime, and you're not expecting it because you've been, Barbara Hershey's been like quietly telling the story, and it's done so well because she's building up the tension about this demon by describing like, oh, it was in the room, and you just see it in the shadow in the corner with its hand stretched out, and she asks it what it wants. I want Dalton, but you don't hear it, and you're like, oh, what? And then when it just cuts back to him, and it's been doing the like cuts and slow zooms back and forth, and nothing's been behind him, and then boom, that thing's there and it's gone.
Yeah.
And then also I think this movie kind of pioneered, I'm sure it wasn't the first one to do this, but it kind of pioneered a craze of taking songs that wouldn't necessarily be creepy on their own and making them creepy I think a lot of people think Tiny Tim is creepy anyway, but those songs aren't necessarily supposed to be creepy songs. It's supposed to be a happy, tiptoe through the tulips. But when you put it in this context,
I think people would have found it
extremely
before
creepy
because of how crazy his falsetto is. I mean, it's very over the top, and I think that most people would find that laughable if it wasn't literally because of this film attached to horror.
And I agree with that. I think that it works. I mean, I think that kind of put him back on the map. But that scare, going back to that, I think that, and I mentioned this to you guys before, that the less is more with that particular character with the lipstick demon. I think the more that we get of him later on.
Which they kind of took to heart because we haven't really seen him show up in any of the Insidious stuff after. But
yeah, I think rumor has it that's what 5 is going to be leaning toward, but I don't know if any of that's true. I know 5 is supposed to be an actual sequel.
Yeah, directed by Patrick Wilson.
Yeah, but
all the cast coming back.
I think that's my favorite scare of the movie. But this movie is so fucking good. I was
the scare when Rose Byrne is laying in her room and the dude's walking outside back and forth on the porch, and then he pops up inside. My only thing that I don't like about that is that I just don't like that ghost's design, because he basically just looks like I compared him to Danzig, but like he basically just looks like a dude with greasy, like he looks like Snape or something. Yeah. But I guess he's missing a nose. We do get a little bit of a CG tongue at one point. The greasy demon dude like licks Rose Byrne's face with a little CG tongue. And
I think the demon has one too.
Yeah, it's like Juan can't stay away from his CG tongues.
Yeah.
But I do think that the lipstick demon is cool, but does feel a little bit, I think, out of place in the collection of other spirits that are happening.
Ghost, like that's the point. I mean, and I think that there is room to allow like demons to exist in this realm as well, but I feel
borders
like
on feeling too Conjuring at that point. Like they start to cross over a little bit. Yeah,
because it's not about possession. I mean, it is about possession, but it's more about like ghosts with unfinished business who want a second shot at life to do nefarious things. And I think that adding a demon to that it convolutes the story a little. Yeah, but not in a way that makes me want to not watch this movie like 150,000 times.
Yeah, I just don't think that they necessarily needed that, because I think it's good enough to... Because I think a lot of people's problem with haunted house movies or ghosts in general, or why they should be scary, is like, what would a ghost do to you? Like, it's a ghost. Like, they can't do anything to you, assuming that that's the rules of a ghost or whatever. But in this, it's just like, yeah, the ghost wants to like leech the life off of this person and take them over and live again, and we get that expanded obviously a lot in the sequel. And then I think that plays really nicely into the ending of this, which some people don't like. I like the ending where you have the little race back to their bodies, and
we never see them.
Yeah, we don't see which one gets there, and so for a little bit we're not sure. And then you have just like this insane Patrick Wilson strangling Lynn Shay, which is also crazy that she has continued to be in all of these movies, even though she dies in the first one.
Is she in all of them?
In Last Key, it's a prequel.
I think 3 and 4 are prequels. So that's how because they wanted to bring Lynn Shay back and didn't want to do what they do in the second one, which is bring her back as a spirit. But
I mean, I think
as a younger dubbed person,
I see the value in that, strictly because she is one of the better parts of
which I think is super cool, that an actor in that late stage of their life, especially somebody who I don't think necessarily was a big name outside of, like, you probably recognized her in Nightmare on Elm Street, and she is Rob Shay from New Line's wife, I think. But I mean, just the fact that she became kind of like the tent pole of this franchise is cool. And I think she's good. Like, she is really good.
And what was the movie that we didn't like that she was in? Is it the Grudge remake?
Grudge, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
she was the best part of that movie. It just was not a good movie.
We had just erased it from our memories.
Mm-hmm. I Lynn Shade it.
Yeah, but you guys want to go into chapter 2 and talk a little bit about that? Do you have any like big egregious problems outside of not really liking the ending or the further with the first one? I know you pretty much said that you think it's a pretty great movie up until that point.
Yeah, it's legit scary. I've seen it, and I was still like, yeah, this is working. Especially, if you set the mood, turn the lights off, you get cozy, you fucking focus on it. Like, this movie slaps.
Yeah.
And it does a lot of it without the gore of Saw, which I guess makes sense because it didn't want to go in that route. I mean, it feels like a scary haunted house movie with a twist where it's the kids haunted, not necessarily the house. And I like that it tackles the tropes where it's like, no, we can move. it's always like,
Yeah.
just fucking move.
Yeah,
And
that's
then
so cool
do,
that
and
they
I was
do
like,
that. And then
okay.
it's like, that was unfortunately, that was in the trailers. I remember that vividly and that's the tagline on the poster is like, it's not the house, it's your son that's haunted. So it's if you didn't know that going in, it would be a cool surprise when they move and the hauntings don't stop.
I love that. I love that you sit with the tension, that it builds so well, and that it has all these earned jump scares. We talk about that a lot. This is a great example of that versus cats jumping on a piano.
Yeah, it's no like a ball hitting a window or a cat jumping out of somewhere.
It's just it's a fucking great movie, and it's just the further stuff, the more we get of what these spirits are doing, and the more we get of that demon and that bad CGI. It's rough.
Yeah. Well, chapter 2.
Chapter 2.
So this wasn't surprisingly something that they had originally planned to do was a sequel to this.
Which is surprising because it seems, based on our experience,
to me, it makes so much like this. Yeah, they make so much sense as a duology, as a pair of movies, which I just think means that the writing in this is really good. Like the fact that they were able to take the story and go, what parts of it can we elaborate on and expand on? But yeah, Juan went and made The Conjuring in between making Insidious and Insidious Chapter 2,
which a lot of people consider The Conjuring to be the best film of his career.
And so I wanted to read a quote from him because it kind of plays into what we've been talking about with all of his movies, about pulling the influence from like the last movie he made into the next one. He said, "I pulled things from Insidious that I applied to The Conjuring, and what I learned from The Conjuring I applied to Insidious 2. So for me, I feel like it's a cumulative filmmaking experience that I've gathered over the years." And I think you can really tell going into 2, I think it's even better shot than the first one is, and it feels a little bit more like, I guess they get less and less ugly as they go. Like I still feel like Insidious has a kind of like garish lighting scheme, and this one feels like everything's more intentional. You get a lot of the
first one's kind of washed out.
Yeah, this one you get lots of really cool colors, and he does it in an interesting way where instead of just putting like a hue light in the corner, you have a bunch of stained glass windows around. Like you have a red stained glass window on the stairs of Josh's childhood home, and then the front door has like a kind of greenish tint to the glass, so you get some green light coming through there. You have like some purple curtains on one of the windows, and you get some purple light coming in, so he's able to do a sort of giallo influence around the house without having like really intense Mandy level lighting on everything, because I think that's a style that's coming to be overdone. The over the top, like oversaturation of color. Yeah,
it's I think that Mandy kind of started that craze, and then it's since just continued to blow up. I mean, Color Out of Space literally is that just a movie to be the vehicle to do that.
Yeah, what if the hue lights were aliens?
Well, isn't that kind of what the original Suspiria is like?
Yeah, but that was before everybody was doing that, and Argento was like, "This is my cool thing," and it was harder to do. You had to do,
and we're like, "Yes,
shit,
Argento, do your cool thing."
This movie felt so different to me. Like it's not. I don't know. Like it wasn't scary at all to me.
Yeah, it's a lot more about the
mood and everything to get in the same idea. Yeah. And so I was like, it feels like it almost didn't feel like Juan in a lot of ways. To me, it kind of felt like a Derrickson. Like I feel like there's definitely a sinister feel to this.
Yeah, interesting that Ethan Hawke actually turned down playing the Patrick Wilson role in Insidious, and then ended up doing Sinister, which is also Blumhouse.
Yeah,
it's very similar concept, also similar titles,
and they've been talking about crossing them over. So
I could see that Bagul could fit right in, that Gabagool. Yeah, it does feel like a different movie, but I think that it also feels very of a piece because it picks up like immediately after. So we get a little bit of flashback setup in the beginning. We get this long scene of young Elise coming to help out. I think it's Jocelyn Donahue plays young Lorraine. She's from House of the Devil. Mm-hmm. Also super cute.
Yes.
So I wasn't mad about it. I guess because Lin Shaye has a really distinctive voice. To me, it's old lady voice, but I guess it's this distinctive Lin Shaye voice. They dub over the actress playing
super weird
young Elise.
Very giallo, but also very noticeable. Like I guess Juan was going in that malignant direction all along, like that giallo feel.
Yeah, so you get to see, it's like, oh, the pictures you saw and the little bit of backstory you heard about Josh's character in the first movie. Now we're actually going to flashback and show you some of that. So we have some kind of, things that we fill in the gaps later of him kind of walking around the house in a trance in the further that Elise is putting him in, and
Right.
showing them where the ghosties are and everything. And then we cut to what I think is a pretty incredible shot, which is that like it's a whole black screen and you just have like that pinpoint of something in the center, and you can hear like the distant echoey voice of Rose Byrne and the police person that she's talking to, who is classic Juan police officer. He's like, so you're trying to tell me that some ghosts made you do some shit in your house and now this lady's dead?
I'm glad they addressed that, though.
Yeah,
a lot of times these movies
it also
will, like,
serves as a
brush
pretty good recap of the first movie if you didn't see it, where she's like, yeah, and then I was scared by a greasy-haired man in my basement. But yeah, you slowly zoom until the room comes up, and yeah, she's in an interrogation room. They have a plot line that they kind of set up here and then drop just in another phone call later in the movie, which is, how the fuck is Patrick Wilson going to get away with killing Elise in the previous movie?
And then they're like, oh.
So yeah, he goes, okay, well, if those fingerprints and those fucked up claw marks in her neck match your husband, we're going to get him. And then later, just in a phone call, it's just like, yeah, so it turns out that it wasn't a match. They're good.
Little lady.
And I'm like, I feel like that wouldn't be enough to write him off as being the murderer. It's like it had to have been somebody in that house, and it definitely wasn't Specs.
But I was like, okay, if they took the impression of his hand after he did it, then it would still be the old lady hand. So does he have a past record that they know it's...
Also check his fingernails. Do some police work, guys.
Yeah,
Come
I
on.
was like,
You're not hunting the zigsaw killer, the jigsaw killer. But yeah, we get that cool opening, and then we pretty much pick up right after the first movie, like right after he's committed the murder.
And now they're staying with Lorraine.
Yeah, so they go to his childhood home.
These houses are gorgeous. I'm like,
I know.
get one of
Like,
these?
how much
Jesus.
money do these fucking people have?
I'm willing to be haunted. Just let me hang out here for a little bit.
Yeah, for a good enough rent, good enough mortgage. Yeah, I'd get haunted. But yeah, so most of this movie takes place in Josh's childhood home, and then also in a hospital that was definitely giving me some Mad Exorcist 3 vibes. I don't know if you would pick up on that because I haven't seen it. But that hospital was actually, I think, the same hospital that was used in Halloween 2. I don't know which Halloween 2. And has been used in like a million other horror movies. So it's a very...
If it's been used that many
hospital.
times, I'm going to assume that it's probably the original Halloween 2.
Yeah. So in this one, we have Patrick Wilson possessed by the ghost of the evil hag, which...
Cool performance versus his performance in the first one. Like, he's kind of just there in the first one. He's not bad. He does what he needs to do.
I think it's
never
intentional
like,
that he's meant to be like aloof because because he's been like brainwashed essentially.
Right, and he wants to stay away from anything that's happening so that he doesn't
he stays
trigger
at
any
school
memories.
So he can avoid it. And...
even sleeps there. You know what I mean? Like it all makes sense. And then in this one, like the contrast is so cool because he's just a fucking dick, and he's very aggressive, and it's way different.
Yeah, it was pissing me off a little bit, but in a way where I was like, I can't really be mad at this because it totally makes sense. But they use it as a way to have him try to convince his wife and everyone that there are no ghosts in the house. Like, kind of try to reset us back to like, no, everything's fine, everything's fine. And we know that's because the ghost is trying to throw them off the scent of what's actually going on, and is just trying to like cling on to this body, which we find out as the movie progresses and he gets grosser and grosser looking. All that moisturizing didn't do him any good. He's still fucking pulling out teeth and getting all ghostly pale. But yeah, we find out a bunch of stuff about the old woman ghosts and everything. I think that the coolest part about this whole thing is that in the first movie, the intention was not to make the bride in black, Parker Crane or whatever, a man in drag, but it was a man playing the old lady ghost in the first movie, just because horror movies do that a lot. I think a man plays the barbarian thing. Like, it's just creepier to have a man's stature, but as a woman. So then they like tied that into the plot of this one, where you find out this whole backstory about Parker Crane, and his mother is also a ghost who's like kind of haunted him into committing the killings that he committed.
You telling me that Parker Crane's mom coming in and slapping the shit out of Rose Byrne didn't do anything for
That's
you?
the one scene that always I don't think there's many great like jump scary scenes in this one. I think there's a lot of creepy atmosphere, and I think a lot of the ideas are very
It
creepy.
felt more like a Blumhouse movie. Like
Yeah.
it felt very much like a commercial Blumhouse movie, and I think that was kind of what pulled me out. Where again, the Insidious, the first one, felt original in a lot of ways, and it felt like it was kind of independent. Like James Wan's still kind of doing his own thing without too much influence. And I think that maxes out at The Conjuring, and then we get weird shit. Sounds like this one feels way more mainstream than any of his other movies. And so that scene, I was like, all right, like it didn't get me because it was a predictable jump scare.
Yeah, but I just think that the visage of this like massive woman with like the really creepy like makeup and everything, like I think that it doesn't do a good job of making me jump, but it does a good job of setting up tension and kind of letting me hang out in it, which I mean that's some of my favorite shits to do. But I also I really enjoy the concept of the dice. I thought that shit was super fucking
So yeah, I love that moment of realization, and we haven't even talked about these characters yet, really, outside of mentioning their names. And I don't know how you guys feel about them, but Specs and Angus Sampson's character, the other dude,
I don't remember his name.
Specs and Hot Pocket.
Hot Pocket.
They have a little James Wan cameo. Did you catch that?
On the laptop. Mm-hmm. Yeah, when they're looking through the video.
That was cool.
But yeah, their characters, how do you guys feel about them? They add a little bit of comedic relief to these two movies, but
I think that Lee's Lee's accent's better.
Yeah,
by a lot.
Saw,
I was like, holy shit, you practiced for sure between Saw and this.
I think there was one in part 2 when he says something, and I was like, okay, there it is. But
well, I think
that's
what helps him a lot and why this performance is so much better is that it's way more subdued. He doesn't. Most of his lines are just like delivered very matter of fact, like straightforward, and the sense of humor between the two of them is very dry. So he doesn't have to extend himself far enough to break his accent or break our suspension of disbelief about him being a decent actor.
Yeah, and it's not meant to be something that's meant to make you like sit there and chuckle for minutes on end. It's literally just meant to be that quick gasp of air and then back into the tension.
And Angus Sampson, the other guy, is also Australian. I don't know if you guys noticed that he had an accent that he was covering up, but
the first one it works better with them. I don't love the comedy always in the first one. I think it's sometimes misplaced, but for the most part, it's okay. Like sometimes, they're arguing in the middle of like, well, this is better. Well,
I think Lee Winnell is really funny as a person. I don't often find his writing when it's supposed to be funny to actually be funny.
Yeah.
Like, and I feel like that's something that extends to like other like some of the attempts at comedic beats in Invisible Man. I like don't. If I recall, don't really like land with me, but
I think we got too much of them in part 2.
Yeah, well, it definitely feels like it's okay now. The movie is really we're focusing less on the Lamberts and more on Elise and Co. Yeah, and it's more about them, and then that ends up obviously being the case with the rest of the movies. But I like them, and I love that moment when they're like when they have they go down into Elise's creepy basement, and they're like, man, like I wish that we could ask her for help. Turn and look at each other, and it's like, oh, we could talk to the ghosts, to the spooks. We get another ghost detective coming in.
Yeah,
with
the Dice Man,
who's also involved in Josh's past as well.
So what about the dice?
I just think that I think it's a cool concept.
It's because he has a fucking vendetta against Ouija boards. So he's like, oh, okay, it's just a different kind of Ouija board.
I mean, it is very similar, but I like how like they try to get it to work a few times and it's not working, and then all of a sudden things just kind of kick into gear. And I
think we just got like a vision of your dance moves.
And so it starts working, and they think that they're having a conversation with one ghost, but it turns out to be a more different ghost, which I think is pretty cool. And I really like the reveal like at the end where he's like basically like he puts all of his cards on the table and is like what does Parker Crane have behind their back? I like that a lot.
Yeah, I think there's a ton of tension in that scene, and also the whole like Patrick Wilson is just fucking crazy in this movie.
Very here's Johnny.
Well, even when he's like busting through the wall at the end, which makes me even more like eye roll at The Conjuring. The Devil Made Me Do It, because he does the same thing at the end of that. He gets like possessed and picks up a axe or a hammer or whatever and chases Lorraine around. Yeah, that you don't remember because that movie sucked, but
I try to forget.
Yeah, they tried to do a whole Shining homage again. It's just like, okay, are we remaking The Shining with Patrick Wilson? Is that what you want to do? Is that what you want to do?
Because we already got that, and Flanagan nailed it.
So I will say, in terms of before I get to other things that I really like about this movie, I will say things that I do think are weaknesses in both of these movies. I don't like Rose Byrne very much.
That surprised me. I thought she was good.
Yeah, I had no
I felt
problems with
like
her.
her pain. Maybe not so much in the second one because she's very like utilized less.
Well, I
think she carried the
I
first
just feel
one
like
well.
all they give her to do in these two movies is just, who's that? Like it's just all like mouth hanging open, like, and just constant crying. And I'm like, there's no. I get like in that situation that's realistic, but when you're watching that for two movies, it just doesn't give me anything in term. It's just like, oh, she's just scared mom, scared wife, like for the two movies, and I wish there had been a little bit more for her character to do.
I mean, she's put in a position where she's helpless, though. She doesn't have the ability to astral project. She doesn't have the ability to do any of these things, so she can't go into the further and fight for her family, which I imagine as a parent probably fucking sucks. I mean,
that's why I almost feel like the better decision would have been to do something with her being able to go in and help Dalton, because in the first one, Patrick Wilson is kind of nothing for a lot of the movie, and then he ends up being like the hero. And then in the second one, he gets to play the fun villain and do all of that crazy shit. And I just don't feel like, while it may be realistic for Rose, like if she had done something, I don't even think if it's down to her performance really. But then again, I just don't really like her in other things either. Like I'm not a big fan of her in Bridesmaids, even though I really like that movie. I'm not a big fan of her in the X-Men movies. Like I just haven't really seen anything where I'm like, oh shit, she's great. But I also just feel like they just don't do anything interesting with her except for her to be a vehicle for us to get scared by the ghosts and stuff. She's just there to wander around and get spooked by stuff.
She's our Avatar.
Oh shit, dude! Tying it all back around. Go listen to our James Cameron episodes.
No, I thought she was good, and I like where her character starts and goes, and we get this like slight backstory where it seems like they move into the house in the beginning because she wants to focus on her music, and so we know that she has some kind of career, and then that music becomes very important when we move to the second one, which I thought was brilliant.
I did like her in the room with possessed Patrick Wilson, and when she has that realization when he's like, I don't know what song that is. And it clicks in her head like, oh shit, he's possessed. Like,
so
it was like, oh shit, okay, she's gonna have to start doing stuff. And then like toward the end when she is like, getting the kids into the basement room or whatever, and everybody's kind of taking action. Like she has some stuff to do. She never, for how much she's in these movies, I just don't feel like they do anything particularly interesting with her except for her to be a vehicle for us to get jump scared.
I think it's hard too though, because they put her in a position where all she's able to do is to say, no, there's shit going on, and everyone's like, no, we don't believe you.
I guess so. That is a good point. She is the character that like we as the audience are rooting for because she's the one that believes shit's going down. In both movies, she's just being constantly told that she's wrong and not to worry about it and blah blah blah.
Patrick Wilson hitting her with the gaslight girl boss gatekeep on both movies.
Toward the later in the movie when he's just like, she's like, it's like we're already dead. He's like, no, you don't know what it's like to be dead. I know what it's like to be dead. Not because I'm a ghost or anything.
I was like, this is a little on the nose. And then I'm just saying, you don't know what it's like to be dead.
Yeah.
But I think that something that reminded me, I mentioned this to you, reminded me a lot of what we'd see in Malignant was getting like the VHS tapes of Josh as a kid. Reminded me of like when we see what's her face's flashbacks on the VHS tape in Malignant about the whole Gabriel thing. I think that the scare when they go to Parker's house and they like go to the basement and they find all of the corpses in there.
It's like behind a bookshelf or some shit, right?
Yeah, I think all of that is like very creepy, very well done.
Yeah, I like that a lot.
Yeah, and then my favorite part of the movie is the Back to the Future 2 stuff, which is we find out that real Patrick Wilson has been hanging out in the further trying to communicate with his family. So he was the one playing the song on the piano and everything. And when
adds a different layer to like the being haunted. It's like, yeah, you're haunted, but I'm trying to do something good.
Yeah, and we get a little bit of a ghost story type idea with like the time is weird in the further in the ghost zone, so time is not linear. So he's able to, we see Specs and Hot Pocket find out that if they brighten the image and do an enhance on the footage of him as a kid, adult Patrick Wilson standing in the background. I don't know why everybody in that house didn't freak out and try to get his autograph. It's Patrick Wilson. He's standing in the house. But they find that out, and then we find out it's because he's able to travel back in time. And so that whole scene in the beginning where the kid is talking, you think to Elise and the mom in that trance, he's actually talking to adult Patrick Wilson, who's asking him like, hey, help me figure out where the spooks are. And so when he walks up and points at the door and the door opens, it's actually Patrick Wilson going through there. And then he goes into the fucking first movie, which I think is so cool. So the like knocking on the door that Patrick Wilson goes down and answers in the first movie is him knocking on his own fucking door of his house. And so they like tie in. And if they didn't intend to do that, I think that's so clever that they were like, oh, we got a couple unexplained
like why was
spooky
the ghost
things
knocking on the door?
Yeah, like what was that? Oh, we'll just have that be a time traveling Patrick Wilson.
Yeah.
So I think that's a super cool concept, and I just love that. I just love that for this franchise. I just love that for Patrick Wilson. But then I like the scene when so we find out that Parker Crane was a boy whose mom wanted him to be a girl named Marilyn, so abused him into
some kind of sleepaway camp shit.
Yeah, and being a serial killer. But we get that scene where she's talking to him on the bed, like, your name is Marilyn. And then she like slowly starts turning her head toward the Elise and them standing in the room, and then the way the lighting like just shifts around and gets all dark, and she's pointing at him.
Yeah, very creepy.
Love that, and that's all just in the lighting and everything. I think is a very well done scene. Just lots of stuff where it's like you're a pro now, Juan. Even if it's not as scary as the first one, I can tell that you finally like hit your stride with your craft in terms of the way you use your lighting and the way you compose your scares.
Highlights, lowlights for you?
Like I said, I think that the creativity in the storytelling, I think, is like I think that it took what was a really great product in the original source material and found a way to expand on it that didn't feel like they were trying to do bigger and better. It was more, how do we continue this story in a way that makes sense?
Yeah, and how often? I mean, I know there are other examples, like maybe A Quiet Place Chapter 2 or whatever, but how often do we get these horror sequels that are direct continuations of the first one with all the same cast and just expanding on that world more? A lot of the time it's like, okay, now it's 2 years later and there's a different house and a different, it's like, no, we're just keeping the ball rolling. But yeah, continue.
Yeah. I think that like cinematography wise, all of this is shade above all of the previous work that he had up to this point. I feel like there's a lot more intention behind the shots chosen and when. And I think that those are things that are, like you said, the calling card of someone who is really mastering their craft. Whether that's something that happens in the editing room, it's something that happens, with director of photography, or if that is something that is, to be considered a Wan classic or a Wan staple. Like I said, all those things really show, going forward with his career, because like you wouldn't have a movie like Malignant without some of the steps that were taken in this film, which, I mean, he's gone on to say, in his career that like he wouldn't have the things that he's had if he hadn't taken all the steps he's taken.
Right.
And like I said, I can definitely see the later era Wan stuff in this movie.
Any lowlights?
Like I said, I don't think that it is as scary. I think that they focused.
I fell asleep during it, but I've also seen it a million times. But like I didn't fall asleep during the first one.
Yeah, I don't think that they went in and intending for it to not be as scary. I think they went in trying to make sure that they could make all of the points connect, and they do a great job of that, but at the expense of the story being, or like of the scares being as impactful.
Yeah, I definitely feel like the first Insidious is great scares over a plot that makes a ton of sense, and then the second one is a plot that makes a lot more sense, but the scares, like, it's, you know, it's like one or the other.
The mystery of the first one adds a lot to the scare value, whereas having it more thoroughly explained makes it less scary.
Yeah, I think once you explain the park, like as cool as I think that whole idea and that story is, I mean, it takes pretty much all of the scariness out of the old lady. Like, you had no fucking clue what was going on with her in that first one, and thought it was a her, and didn't know the whole backstory. And then once it's all explained, and it's like, oh, he had a tragic backstory where he was abused as a kid, and then he didn't actually kill people because he wanted to. It was his mom's spirit possessing him and making him kill people. Takes a lot of the steam out of those spooks. So yeah, I mean, it's the classic, like, if you over explain the thing that's supposed to be left up to your imagination, and the more time they spend in, the further, the less interesting that gets, because the further, I think, is more interesting because it's a big expanse of who knows what, and you can imagine anything in there. We
talked about a series of movies recently where I think we liked the second one more, but
Terminator.
The second one wouldn't have worked without the first one. Maybe that was it.
Yeah, it was Terminator.
And it feels like, I mean, I don't feel this way. I don't like 2 more than in the first Insidious, but it feels like it's, I think, like you said, like it's a companion. It's there for people that loved that first movie, that are looking for just a little bit more with these characters, not necessarily a new revelation in Insidious.
Well, when I saw Chapter 2, I remember walking out and people going like, yeah, that sucked compared to the first one, because I think a lot of people going into these movies just want another round of 10 new jump scares to get spooked by and remember for a month or whatever. And that wasn't the intention with this movie. And so I think a lot of people walked out like, what the fuck was that? But as somebody who was a massive fan of the world of the first Insidious, I was very excited that this went in the direction that it did. And in the end of this movie, we get a kind of lame defeat of the ghosts, because they beat up one of the ghosts, like beat up the mom ghost, and by getting rid of the mom ghost, that gets rid of the bride ghost, and then that unpossesses Patrick Wilson. I do like that you get that moment with Rose Byrne where she's not really sure at first. She's like staying away from him, and she's not sure, and then he's like, oh, I tried to play your song, and then she has the little line about like, oh, well, you played it badly, I should have known it was you.
We also get the absence of the demon, who is like the driving force. I mean, I guess it's the woman and him, but I mean, he's the one that's very much possessing Dalton, or trying to possess Dalton in the original movie, and then he's just gone, which is weird until the very end, which I'm like, that feels tacked on.
Well, and that's why I feel like your whole thing about maybe that's what the fifth one is going to be about, I think is pretty spot on. I mean, we don't really know anything about it, but it's supposed to focus on a college age Dalton.
Right.
And so if it's focusing on him, I would assume it's going to focus on the demon that tried to possess him as opposed to Josh's demon. But I do love, as ridiculous as it is, that this kid is able to run into a corner and just immediately pass out and go into the further.
I was like, please,
if I could fall asleep like that, yeah, exactly.
Especially last
fuck
night.
I'm just trying to fall asleep.
But I do like that he takes action after, like, he's like, oh shit, okay, then this is a power I can use for good. Like, I can go in and try to save my dad, and that he brings the can with him so he can hear his mom's voice and has that tether to reality, which I also think is a great scare with him and his brother and the tin can earlier in the movie.
I think that I kind of want to have a conversation about where they think they're going to go with another one of these movies, because I think that's what they're saying. I think I'll be disappointed if the intent of going into this other movie is to just do the same shit over again. Because
him in college.
I mean, if he's college age and the intent is that we've removed their ability to project again, or their ability to remember that that's something they can do.
Yeah, that's the thing, is now twice he's had his memory wiped. At least Josh has.
Yes.
Yeah.
But if we're just going to do the same exact thing, I mean, where's the realization, and like, how are they going to make that satisfying?
Yeah, and is it going to be a thing? Like, maybe now that he's grown up, he definitely wouldn't remember, but yeah,
maybe
it's going to be
the drawings.
That's
that would be cool if those
come
come
college,
back.
finds a box of his drawings, like, oh, what's this shit? And it's like, oh no,
visions of Darth. He's like, why am I having all these Darth Maul visions?
Yeah,
I don't even like the Phantom Menace. But yeah, I mean, it seemed like at the end of this movie, we have a little Jenna Ortega.
We do have a little baby Jenna Ortega.
In her
that
second
lady?
in her second role.
Did you know she was in Iron Man 3?
She plays the daughter of the senator, I guess.
Huh.
I don't know.
Us either.
I just know about the dude he hangs out with in the snowy town.
Is also the kid from this.
Yeah.
From the Insidious movies. Yeah.
Yeah.
Ty Simpkins. So yeah, and then weirdly right before we started recording this, I did the whole I consider myself a teacher, which is Ben Kingsley from Iron Man 3.
Yeah.
So I don't know, I have it on the brain, but yeah,
And it's also very bizarre that in the complete opposite direction, Juan ended up directing movies and TV shows for DC.
yeah. So yeah, at the end of this, we get what we think is going to be sequel bait because we have Specs and Hot Pocket go to visit a new family with another a daughter this time who's in a mysterious coma, and then Elise's ghost shows up, and the little girl, I guess, can see the
her?
ghost.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then Elise goes in, and we hear the telltale creaking of the lipstick face demon, and then she goes, and then it's the end of the movie, and we
Psyched
go,
your
oh, we're getting him
mind.
back. And then for the next two movies, we
Going a completely
go
different
backwards.
direction. Yeah.
But yeah, we got a fifth one coming out, I think, this year. It's wrapped production, so it's either going to be this year or next year, but unless it gets canned, you never know these days.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, directed by Patrick Wilson, which is cool that apparently he had enough passion for this franchise that he wanted to come back, and cool that we're getting Rose Byrne and Ty Simpkins and whoever the fuck the other son is. Maybe he'll come back.
Maybe the daughter.
Yeah,
Bebe?
but
If
I'm
she could be
excited
anybody.
for it. I like this franchise. I think the third one has some pretty good scares in it, but overall, it's not. I liked just these two tied into that one family, and when it starts to go out into like the other adventures of Lin Shaye and crew, I'm not as into it.
The fourth one is hardcore rough.
Awful. That's bad.
Saw it in theaters, and
What's scary about a ghost with keys for fingers?
It doesn't even make sense. I don't even think in the context of the movie it makes sense.
it looks cool on a poster. That's about all it achieves.
Yeah.
That's true.
All right. Well, that's going to wrap it up for our discussion on The Conjuring and The Conjuring Chapter 2. We are going to be continuing James Wanuary next week with Megan.
Yeah,
Megan?
and we're
the
taking a little
plan.
detour out of
not
directed by
directed,
James
yeah.
Wan into his now probably much more lucrative and bigger production company, Atomic Monster, with Megan.
Megan.
Been hearing a lot of negative buzz and a lot of positive buzz.
People
so,
at work today were talking about it, like, oh, I heard it's bad. They said it's like more comedy and kind of just like over the top and with horror. And I was like, that
again,
sounds
it's
perfect.
exactly.
Yeah, I
It's
was like,
really going. It depends on what you're looking for in your horror. If you want that round of 10 good jump scares, this is probably not it. You should have gone and seen Smile because that one had 3,000 stupid jump scares. But I'm excited to see it. I'll be interested because it's so divisive. Usually on these really divisive movies, we land on some sort of spectrum of like one of us is really positive on it, one of us is really negative on it, and one of us is in between, whatever combo of opinions that ends up being between us. But I'm excited to talk about it.
Me too.
Check it out.
So that's what we're going to do next week. Please check that out. If you're crazy interested, head over to Patreon and check out our bonus stuff. We're talking about all the Saw movies. Super fun. And we'll see you next time. I've been Tone.
I've been John.
And I've been, I don't have anything. Internet darling Anthony.
We hope that you have a...
I knew there was some kind of dumbass bit.
Gotcha.
we hope you
Jump
had a
scare,
happy
bitch.
Friday the 13th.
Keep it creepy.